Good Tuesday afternoon to you. It's 4 o'clock in time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Browns continue to work without pads out in West Virginia at the Greenbrier. They will get into pads later in the week for a couple of days before returning back to Berea to get ready for that Hall of Fame game. Let's take a look. Still, offense doing okay here. Watson to Elijah Moore, who by all accounts is developing a chemistry with Deshaun Watson. This time David Njoku on the 11-11 portion of it. This is a 7-on-7 portion of the practice. Watson finds David Bell for the touchdown. Defense did get the better of it in the 11-on-11s in the red zone. There's Jakeem Grant, good sign, as he is fielding some punts. There you see Myles Garrett individual drills, another good sign. Sione Takitaki coming back from that ACL, doing the individual drills as well. Some news and notes from practice. DeJuan Jones, who was ill, participated in the walkthrough, feeling better. Amari Cooper, minor tweak, not to his core muscle, which was injured and had surgery. Progressing, not ready to practice yet today. Also, linebacker special teamer Matthew Adams left the field with the trainer. They were looking at his leg, that from Scott Petrak. Let's welcome in Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Jeff, again, just kind of ramping up before they get into the padded portion. And that's going to be important because that's where you'll get a sense of this defensive line, at least a first look.
Well, I mean, what you're going through here, it's just kind of getting everybody's feet wet. You got to remember, there's changes on the offense as this team with Kevin Stefanski evolves to an offense that is more driven, more suitable, more fitted for quarterback Deshaun Watson. Obviously, on the defensive side of the ball, new defensive coordinator, a whole bunch of new talent. So, you know, it's really hard to come in and go, max speed right out of the gate when you still had guys basically trying to learn the X's and O's of it on the field physically. So, I mean, it's, it was very, very much soft reps on Saturday. And I would say you're probably seeing a 10 to 15% pickup each day afterwards, as they're just trying to get everybody comfortable, obviously, with the jargon, with the verbiage, before, the pads go on. And then you get a little bit more after it. It's not nearly like it used to be back in the day. Everybody kind of respects each other, tries to respect each other health-wise, respect each other's money, so to speak. But they're progressing. They're certainly progressing, and there's guys getting opportunities right now that maybe wouldn't be getting much opportunities because, as always it is, you always have the Tour de France where the guys are going up to the side to the bikes.
So Mina Kimes, ESPN, on ESPN's NFL Live, talking about what Kevin Stefanski and the Browns can do to help Deshaun Watson in this offense.
It's hard to find like a split in which Deshaun Watson was better last year. I suspect you were looking through them. You have to go back a few years. And I think that's ultimately what the Browns and Kevin Stefanski have to do as well. They have to move this offense away from the signature under center, wide zone, then boot system to replicate something closer to what Bill O'Brien did with Deshaun Watson in Houston. Put him in the gun, spread things out. I would use a lot more empty and let him hunt mismatches. And another reason I like that approach is I think this group of Browns skill players is kind of sneaky good and they complement each other well. You've got one of the better route runners in the NFL in Amari Cooper. You have speed now and Elijah Moore, who they traded for. Size with Cedric Tillman, their draft pick, and David Njoku. So I think if you trust Watson and those playmakers to win their one-on-ones, I think you can get more explosives than you would from that traditional, let's do the Shanahan scheme and just make everything simple for the quarterback offense.
Right. And that's probably a valid point. They went out and got this diverse core of wide receivers so that you can create mismatches.
Well, and we talked about this. There's the ability to go straight speed if you wanted to. You can keep Donovan Peoples-Jones on the field. You can put Elijah Moore out there. Hopefully when Marquise Goodwin is healthy enough, you could put him out there. If you want to go big, David Njoku doesn't necessarily have to line up in line. We've seen him line up wide. We've seen him line up in the slot. You could put Cedric Tillman out there. You could go with Donovan Peoples-Jones. There's certainly ways to rotate this. And if you want to go quick, you can go quick. You want to go big, you can go big. And, you're just trying to find as many avenues as you can. And again, it's always about protecting that $230 million investment. So there might be weeks where you feel the speed game is going to be a better matchup. There might be, weeks where you feel the size game is a better matchup. Just trying to be diverse here and not put out the same thing week after week. And look, in 2020, everybody knew what they were doing pretty much every play, and it still worked, and it worked with, a lot of effectiveness. Teams adapt, obviously, and now they know what they're looking for. And we saw times where teams sold out against the run versus Nick Chubb and had a lot of success in doing that. But this team, if it's going to truly evolve and truly become a top offense, it's got to be a pass-first offense. And it's really a great option because with everything they can do passing the ball, it's nice that you have that luxury that, let's go lean on Nick Chubb for a drive or lean on Nick Chubb to close out a fourth quarter of a close game.
Yeah, and Kevin Stefanski talked about that today, just about getting more explosive on offense as well as having Nick Chubb involved still.
I think the deep ball is certainly a part of what we want to do, what everybody wants to know. I think there's varying ways to get there. There's the old school, just take 5 and a hitch and launch a go ball, and that's certainly good ball when you like your matchup. Then there's varying ways in the play action game to try to get the quarterback on the perimeter and give him time to set up and push the ball down the field. So I think it's so dependent on what the defense is allowing you to do, and then it's really dependent on your guys. Who do you want to put where? Who do you want to put on the go ball? Who do you want to put on that deep post, on that far cross, those type of things. So certainly will be part of what we do. How we get to it, I think, will vary.
Given Nick's ability and then Deshaun to get out inside the pocket, you would think that could be something you guys could be really effective for this year.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like we talked about the other day, having Nick Chubb on our team, we're obviously excited to use Nick like we have in the past few years to great success. And then defenses know that we have Nick Chubb, so they're going to try to take him away, and that opens up things in the pass game.
And again, you like hearing that it's when he mentions what the defense is giving you, he's saying game plan specific. He's saying what they can't cover, what their personnel gives you, if you will.
Of course, and you have to understand that this is the way it's going to work, and that's what makes a player like Patrick Mahomes the fabulous magician that he is. They try to take away, but every now and then you see him improvise and come up with something and pull something out of a hat that we've never seen him do before, and that's what you're hoping for. Deshaun Watson has that type of ability. I'm not one of these people that are going to sit here and believe that because he missed that amount of time that it's over for him as a player in this league. And you see him, you see the way he's playing. He's excited about this. I think he knew he basically had a price to pay. He feels he's basically paid that price, and he's a lot more happy. He's a lot more comfortable, familiar with his new toys, so to speak, that he's got to use at his disposal here. It should be, an offense that should come out clicking right away and again, there's a lot of options. There's a lot of diversity. There's more than one way to peel an apple here for this offense and for this offense to succeed, as opposed to years past where everything was dependent on we need to run the ball well to set up the play action.
So a lot has been made about Kevin Stefanski being on the quote-unquote hot seat. Jimmy Haslam, owner, Andy Haslam, the owners of the Browns, met with the media yesterday and kind of addressed the decision and the belief in Kevin Stefanski. And is there a win total that needs to be hit for them to feel good about him as the head coach?
Highly confident. I really do. I think he's being a head coach in the NFL is hard because generally you have a specialty, and Kevin's specialty is offense, quarterbacks, calling plays, etc. But you also have to be a leader of men, and I think he's really good at both. And I don't want to be negative toward their predecessors, but I think Jim Schwartz and Bubba Trone are going to be big helps to us. I do. I mean, they have great track records. Bubba was here as a player, Mary Kay, when we first bought the team. We've known him a long time. We've introduced Schwartz to be a defensive coordinator, a head coach. He actually lived in Nashville for a while. It's somebody we've known well. So I think both of them are going to help, not just Kevin, but help our team a lot. And we're excited to have them both here. The record will come into play it is not just Kevin or Andrew or Paul, it's us too. The record will come into play at some point in time. How much you've waited, I wouldn't want to say. I mean, are we playing well at the end of the year? Did we have injuries? How do we feel about our momentum? I was sitting here thinking the other day, it's 6.5 weeks till our first game? And our last game's something like January 10th, our last regular season game. We hope to play after that. It's a long, long season, okay? Long, long season.
And again, Jeff, that's the answer he has to give, but it certainly doesn't sound like he has anything other than confidence in his general manager. We heard that yesterday, and his head coach.
I mean, you go back to 2020 and what this team was able to do, and keep in mind, no OTAs, not really much of a training camp, all the, everything restricted as far as COVID, of course, no preseason games as well. And then you get to 2021, and everything thought everything was going to be great. The team was 3-1, but meanwhile the quarterback was basically busted onto the left side of his body. It all started to fall apart there. And then 2022, I mean, once they reversed that suspension from 6 games to 11 games, you kind of realized that 2022 it just wasn't going to come to fruition. I mean, you needed a lot of things to happen. Jacoby Brissett played well, but they put him in position to win games when he wasn't that type of quarterback. You put pressure on a rookie kicker to win games. Obviously, he didn't deserve that pressure either. So, I mean, your record is your record, obviously, and there's no getting away from it. But it's really hard to look at 21 and 22 and just basically point the finger and say, oh, well, that's on the coach, or, oh, that's on the general manager. Granted, this team comes out and starts out 1-3 or 1-4. It's not going to be a pleasant experience for either of them. But, the fact that I think everybody just automatically assumes guys are on hot seats is probably mostly because they're, have 5-year contracts. They're going into year 4. There is no more money on the table after the contracts they're sitting on. I can kind of understand that. But, as far as Coach Stefanski, and, for Jimmy not to name names, obviously, basically he was saying basically all of them. But you go back in the last few years as opposed to what we've seen up until this point, and Kevin Stefanski seems everything you expect from a head coach in the NFL. And even if it didn't work out here this year, unlike most past Cleveland Browns head coaches, he would probably get a job and get one pretty quickly.
Yeah, I could see that without question. Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Now I'm going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll hear from Myles Garrett about the opportunity to play for Jim Schwartz. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Myles Garrett today out at Browns training camp in West Virginia talked about just the opportunity to play in this defense under Jim Schwartz.
As soon as you look at the playbook, understanding how aggressive he likes to call his defense and his scheme, the wide 9, bringing an extra guy, trying to get those one-on-ones or those favorable matchups. Those are things that we as a defense get excited for.
And the other thing that you see whenever he talks about playing in this defense, Jeff, he kind of gets a smile on his face.
Well, it's probably one of two things. It's probably I'm getting a play for a defense coordinator that is this established within the NFL. And, hey, meet my new pals, Za'Darius Smith, Dalvin Tomlinson, Agba Okoronkwo. And this is the best collection of talent that has ever been around Myles Garrett at the defensive line position. And, a lot of talk of defensive player of the year and those types of things. I think probably, it's a good chance that it's probably his best shot, and we all know Myles, he's kind of laid back, how much something, an award like that would truly mean to him. I'm not sure any of us know, but I think Myles understands that maybe essentially, as opposed to last year, where the second person on the team, as far as sack total, had 3, I have a feeling Myles Garrett, thinks that the workload for him should be a lot lighter this year, as a lot of guys will be willing and certainly capable of, carrying the workload along with him.
Well, the Browns definitely have a bunch of versatility among their defensive line. Kevin Stefanski today talked about determining how all those pieces fit together on the defensive line.
I think that's the fun part for us and for Jim and for our defensive staff is putting all those pieces together. Like you mentioned, I mean, it's not a mystery in the success that Za'Darius has had in this league, and you've seen what Obo can do. So now it's just a matter of taking all of our guys and taking a Dalvin Tomlinson along with our established guys that have been here and figuring out a formula that makes sense for us.
Is that one of the main things you're looking forward to when the pads finally get out? Because we talked at minicamp, you can't really see exactly what they can do.
Yeah. I mean, I think the padded practices, the games, really the whole month of August will allow us to see how we want to deploy those guys.
And Jeff, that's one of the things about this training camp relative to the last couple of years. The defense and the offense are kind of going to be works in progress as things shake out throughout the preseason.
And like we mentioned, look, a lot of newness. Obviously, you're changing this offense, and look, there are familiar pieces. And it's probably a really good situation for the Browns that you're bringing back your offensive line intact. So, these guys are very familiar with each other as far as working together. But, you're changing, a lot of skill at the wide receiver position, changing kind of the way, the offenses run. Some of it's going to be similar, but it's going to be tweaked. As far as the outside zone, it's probably going to be a little bit more inside zone every now and then. And then just all the newness on defense. We've seen it in the past with teams, all the talent in the world, and why didn't it succeed? But I think when you got a player like Za'Darius Smith, who's found a way to win everywhere he went, a guy like Obadiah Okoronkwo, who knows what it means to be a role player and knows how to basically get his by, finding the holes when the offense is focusing on other players around him. A player like Juan Thornhill, who comes into this with, championship experience, Super Bowl experience. There's a lot. And certainly Rodney McLeod, too, which is another guy that nobody seems to talk about a lot. There is a lot to work with here. The key is just going to be, how effective they could be early, 1st and 10. And that's going to be the key because it's what killed them last year. And until this team can prove that they can stop the run on 1st and 10, that's going to be the thing, because that's what every team is going to try to shoot for, because they couldn't do it last year to, basically to save their own lives. So that's certainly what probably, in my opinion, is going to be a key for offensive space in the Browns is, well, that's great. You've done all of this. Now prove it to us that you can stop the run.
So NFL players voted on the top 100 players in the NFL this season. This is 90 to 81, and there is a guy that the Browns acquired on this list. Number 84, the aforementioned Za'Darius Smith. So, again, you see DeAndre Hopkins is up there at 90, but the same thing there with Christian Watkins and Aiden Hutchinson, Lattimore. That's how well thought of Za'Darius Smith is. And people might lose sight of that because he was banged up towards the end of last year. He was on his way to having a heck of a year last year and then had that leg injury.
Look, I mean, he succeeded as a player that played in odd front defense in Baltimore, certainly in Green Bay. Last year, he goes basically more inline, hand in the dirt, with the Minnesota Vikings and gets it done there. Gets the opportunity now to go to basically a wide 9, which is a little bit different than something he's done in the past. He just knows what he's doing, and here's a guy, it's not the greatest athlete in the world, but a guy who's dedicated to film, knows what he does and continues to do it as well as he can. Doesn't try to do things that he's not capable of. He knows he's not this uber athlete. So obviously, his handwork has got to be key because he doesn't have time to get caught or, entangled with an opposing blocker because he just doesn't have the athletic ability to overcome that. So he's got to get in, get an initial get off, and get after. He's a good player. He's going to be really, really fun to watch. And, he'll definitely probably be we had the Jadeveon Clowney, nice feelings in 21. And, of course, Olivier Vernon, there was, some niceness here. But this is a guy that really, really should be this bookend equal. And, Za'Darius Smith, it should be an easy walk to 10-plus sacks this year because here's a guy that has this great reputation from all the stops all around, other teams in the NFL. And he's going to essentially just, kind of be plan B. It's always going to be plan A, and it's going to be how do we keep Myles Garrett from disrupting the game? And, you can't put the same attention to two players at the same time. So it just creates a lot of easy opportunities, in my opinion, for Za'Darius Smith and a guy who may win more on the inside than we've probably seen in the past, just because the Browns have so many good edge players. They can kind of rotate, and I think Za'Darius Smith on a guard or a center probably makes up to be a really, really nice pass rushing win for him.
We're going to stay on the defensive side of the ball. This is from the Bleacher Report, predicting a couple of breakout Browns players from training camp. They go with Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. When the 23-year-old has been on the field, he's been an impactful player on Cleveland's defense. Had 146 tackles, 1.5 sacks, 4 forced fumbles to this point in his NFL career. They also go with Martin Emerson, coming off a 2022 rookie season, which he played all 17 games, 6 starts, 63 tackles, and a sack. Emerson, impressive coverage skills, should make more big plays as he gains experience. You would also expect, or I would expect, in a Jim Schwartz-style defense, all those defensive backs are going to have the opportunity to make more big plays.
Well, and I think Jim has told us as much. I'm going to keep it simple till I don't have to. And, if I have 2 cornerbacks who are first-round picks, I have another cornerback who was, top 75 pick, I have to have faith in these guys that they can go out there and just cover. So I don't want to confuse them with verbiage. I don't want to confuse them with waiting for a safety to give them a call. Go out and cover. And, Martin Emerson, it's the length, it's the size, and he's just different in the room compared to the other 2 cornerbacks that he plays with. And I think for Emerson, Emerson is going to be a long-term starter in this league. The one thing people were concerned about coming out of Mississippi State was his physicality. Was going to lead to, penalties. And to his credit, no. He found a way to, still be physical, but still be physical within the guidelines of the rules. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, look, he looks quick. He looks great. And I think he harped on and he spoke yesterday about keeping his weight at a certain number. And he said he was able to keep his weight where the Browns wanted it, but also to add a little bit of mass. The thing is, I think for JOK, it's just playing within himself. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah plays with such an intensity, with such a fire, that maybe at times it works against him because he kind of runs himself out of the play or almost takes himself out of the play. But now that he's older, a little bit mature, spend more time with a guy like Anthony Walker and, who hammers these things into him. Hey, trust what you see and just go take it. And I think for JOK, I think it's all there this year. I really think the opportunity is there. And the way this works is the Browns want him to be the linebacker, in most opportunities, the only linebacker on the field. They want to get the other guys off, get more pass rushers on, get more defensive backs on. And you have JOK, who is basically built like that hybrid, linebacker safety, which is why I think they were pretty, emphatic about that number of his weight being right around that 220 range.
Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast and I are going to take a quick time out, other side of the break. Some national perspective on where a former player thinks Deshaun Watson could be this year. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Ryan Clark on ESPN's Get Up. Clark, a former defensive back for the Steelers, talking about how good Deshaun Watson was before that long layoff.
When last seen Ryan Clark, where did you have him? Purely as a football player, where did you rank him among the best quarterbacks in the NFL?
To me, it was Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson in 2020 was coming off of a season where the Houston Texans were 4-12. That year, Deshaun Watson passed for over 4,800 yards, 33 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. So much so, he was so good, J.J. Watt, the future first ballot Hall of Famer, apologized to him. He said, Deshaun, I am sorry for wasting one of the best years I've ever seen out of a quarterback. That's just how good Deshaun Watson was. And so now, if he can get back close to that with guys like Donovan Peoples-Jones, Amari Cooper, you have David Njoku at the tight end position, and someone like Nick Chubb at running back. If they can find a way to get Deshaun Watson close to what he was, this is a team that could be very difficult to deal with.
Jeff, we've talked about that quite a bit. If he gets to that level, it kind of pushes things towards conference championship, Super Bowl. If he's competent to very good, they're a playoff team.
But look, there's no way around it. And, look, if you have your concerns about it because it was a long layoff, but again, I will harp on this. It's not like it's this major injury. There was no injury, zero injury. So the rust is understandable. The fact that there's people who think it's just over for him, that's the one that blows my mind. And Ryan Clark, I guess you're not going back to Pittsburgh anytime soon because the Steelers fans certainly are not going to want to hear any of this. He is that level of player. And look, Lamar Jackson is going to be different for him this year as they're trying to make the transition where they have him play more traditional quarterback. Deshaun Watson, it's all there for him. And for Deshaun Watson, there are no excuses. He's going to be in a really, really difficult situation if he doesn't go in and fall out. And to be fair, we talk about that season he had in 2020, and he doesn't have to throw for 4,800 yards. He doesn't have to throw for 33 touchdowns. He's got to throw for 31, and he's got to throw for about 42 for it to be the best statistical season for a Cleveland Brown quarterback ever. That should be the expectation. He breaks those records for the Cleveland Browns, this team is most likely hosting their first playoff game.
So we've heard quite a bit from Kevin Stefanski just about the preparation that Deshaun Watson is putting in relative to minicamp, training camp, always in the building, trying to get a handle on the offense. Watson talked about his preparation for training camp as well as this season and why he's been so crazed with it.
I'm just hungry. I'm anxious. I'm ready to just go out there and just play ball. And I've always been a student of the game, but when nothing else to do when I'm sitting at home. So all I want to do is just go out there and try to improve. We have so much time and just free time in the off season. And my mindset was just really just making sure I'm prepared and going out there, like I said before, is putting myself in situations that can come up this season, on the field, off the field, and just being able to just go out there and grind. So it was just, when I'm in Cleveland, if I'm not at the house or out eating, I'm at the facility. And those are the three spots that I'm pretty much doing, or I'm located.
And Jeff, what that tells me, he's heard some of the talk, and there's a little bit of desire to prove folks that are saying he's the 26th or the 18th quarterback wrong.
And look, and we kind of know where some of that comes from. Obviously, there's some people, and look, if you're not going to evaluate the player based just on their ability, look, God bless you, I guess. I have nothing else to say to you. But to think that this type of player is just no longer there. And look, there was one factor here for Deshaun Watson. I mean, and it does happen a lot of times when athletes get into off-field issues. It's the, oh my God, this can be taken away. It's all I've ever done. I don't know what else to do. And it's a really tough spot to be in. And, there's some people that are still trying to give him a hard time. And look, I get it. I do. But, if the NFL feels that, he's basically on a clean slate, that's kind of the way as us, as people who evaluate, give our opinions, we have to feel as well. And I think he truly wants to be a part of something special here in Cleveland. His teammates buy in. His teammates like him. He's down in Miami working out. There are the other guys showing up as well. He's got that factor, that it factor to him. Granted, he's got to perform here. And it's a really tough division with one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, certainly within this division as well. And hopefully that proves as a motivating factor for Deshaun Watson. And, a mountain to climb is essentially here trying to get this team an AFC North title.
So we're going to stick on the offensive side of the ball. This, again, Bleacher Report. Breakout players in training camp for the Browns on the offensive side of the ball. We've seen this one a lot. Elijah Moore. Great chance that Moore's first camp with the Browns will be an impressive one, as he should be. Out to prove he can put up bigger numbers than he did with the Jets. Talent and skill are there for him to have a strong year. The way that the Jets kind of discarded him and didn't use him a lot, he's got something to prove as well.
Dave, his final season at Ole Miss in 2020, he played in 8 games. He had 86 receptions. He had over 1,200 yards. He had 3 200-yard games in 8 games for the season. This guy is a player. And look, for the Jets, you did what you had to do. You were making this move very similar to the Browns did last year with Deshaun Watson. So they did what they had to do. And ideally, Elijah Moore should have been part of a package that went to the Green Bay Packers. But when there was a confrontation between Elijah Moore and a coach whose brother happens to be the head coach for the Green Bay Packers, a golden opportunity opened up for the Cleveland Browns, who swooped in and were able to get this deal done. He's going to lead this team in receptions. He may lead this team in every receiving statistical spot there is. He is special. He's got talent. He can be used inside. He can be used outside. And as we can see, they're using him in the backfield. This guy is an absolute player. And I think I even love the fact even more that he comes in here with a chip on his shoulder, little aggravated. And, he gets to go from what was Zach Wilson to what he thought was going to be Aaron Rodgers to Deshaun Watson. Elijah Moore, he's been good. To his credit, he's been good about it. He's quiet about it. But there's a fire burning inside this guy. And it's not that he probably dislikes Garrett Wilson, but it was like, I was capable of that. I could have done that as well. But you just gave somebody else the opportunity. Elijah Moore's going to show out. He's going to show out really well this year.
Along those lines, take a listen to what his new teammate, Greg Newsome, had to say about Elijah Moore this afternoon.
We're excited. I'm just going to tell the NFL better watch out for him. He's one of the best that I've honestly been against. And I'm not just saying it because he's on my team, but, I had the pleasure of, guarding him every single day in OTAs and now. And, he's a great route runner. He has speed. So I'm definitely super excited for him.
And again, there you have it. That's a first-round cornerback against what would have been a first-round wide receiver. He fell to the second round. But when a guy on your new team says that, and it wasn't, they just asked him, what have you seen from Elijah Moore? That was the answer.
Look, he's got it all. And the thing is we talk about route running ability. He can go deep. He runs the motion routes very well. What he can do out of the backfield. And he runs about a 4.3, 4.40. There's nothing this guy truly can't do. Just truly needs the opportunity. And, Cleveland has this wide receiver room where it's basically Amari Cooper. You see you're present, but you see maybe Donovan, and you see, of course, Elijah Moore, Cedric Tillman. You kind of see what the future of this room is. But look, and look, I agree with Greg Newsome, and I basically said it before Greg Newsome said it. This guy, he's going to put teams on notice. And there might be some weeks where you get 8 receptions for 68 yards. But there's probably going to be some weeks where you get 8 receptions for 125 yards. And he's going to be a handful. He's going to be a real problem to deal with. Because you got to keep in mind, if you were now focusing on Elijah Moore, that means your focus isn't on David Njoku. Your focus isn't on Amari Cooper. Your focus isn't on Donovan Peoples-Jones. Your focus isn't on Nick Chubb. That's crazy, crazy thought to even have. But that is the type of personnel this team can go with, which is probably going to be their base personnel, which will be 11 personnel. And that is a pretty fun 5 to have out there.
Without question. Jeff Lloyd and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, we'll take a look at some projections for the AFC North. And one has it as a historically good division. We'll tell you about that. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. This also from ESPN's Get Up. Mike Tannenbaum, Mike Greenberg talking about the expectations for Deshaun Watson and the Browns this year.
Kevin Stefanski in the front office, when you give $230 million and multiple first-round picks, the expectations are sky high. It was disappointing last year, so this is a consequential year in Cleveland, not only for Deshaun Watson, but for most of that organization.
Look, if he is as good or even close as he was when last we saw him before all that has happened, the Cleveland Browns are a team everyone needs to be thinking about right there with any of the better teams in the AFC.
And Jeff, it's kind of interesting. So the closer we get to games, preseason games even, and the more you hear former players talk, the more you start to hear people that think Deshaun Watson's going to be pretty good.
Well, we hear people talk about other quarterbacks, and you're ready to take quarterbacks and put them up on a pedestal who haven't really proven anything yet. Deshaun Watson was one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. There is no debating that. And again, he didn't blow out his knees. His right arm didn't fall off, and it was put back on magically through surgery. To just think that all this talent, it just all of a sudden disappeared because he stopped playing for a while. It's just you're trying and hoping that your narrative works. If you want to get caught up in the moment and you want the clicks at the moment, he was, a year and a half ago considered one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, hands down, bar none. So, at 27 years old, to believe that player is still not within that body, for me, it's foolish. And, I hope he's going to prove a lot of people wrong. I think he's going to prove a lot of people wrong. And we'll see how many how many are going to be so quick to put out the stories of saying how wrong they were, as opposed to, basically maybe bashing other teams' defenses for not being good enough to hold Deshaun Watson down.
So this is kind of interesting. 2023 NFL record projections from USA Today. They projected all of them. They have every one of the AFC North teams winning at least 10 games. There's never been a division where every team has been over 500. They have the Bengals at 12-5, Ravens at 11-6, Steelers at 11-6, Browns at 10-7. So the wild card teams, they have the Ravens and Jets at 12-5 and the Dolphins at 11-6. Quick math: if in fact all of those teams in the North are over 500 or have 10 wins, that means all four of them combined can only lose 16 games out of the AFC North. So I can't see all of those teams being over 500. And having said that, I think it is the best division by quite a bit. I have my questions about the Jets and the Patriots, and even the Bills and the Dolphins, I think, could come back a step or a half step, but they're still really good.
Well, this is the part of what I was just speaking about. So we're just assuming what we saw of Kenny Pickett last year, who threw the same amount of touchdowns as Deshaun Watson did in 6 games. Kenny Pickett's all of a sudden now going to be the guy. But Deshaun Watson, who in 2020 put up maybe one of the best statistical quarterback seasons that ever existed, he's not going to be good enough. And these are, okay, well, is it the Browns? And, when do you do this? When you do a drill like that or exercise like this, is there a Browns penalty that you have to just put on them? Because, I hear about, this team did this, this team did that. The Browns, first off, just through defensive ends, added 15 sacks to their roster between the two players that they brought in at edge. 15 sacks from last year. Juan Thornhill, major improvement at the free safety position. And you want to know what? They even doubled up on that because they got you Rodney McLeod as well. Dalvin Tomlinson, right now, today, has been the best defensive tackle that's ever played for the Cleveland Browns in the 7 years I have covered this team. Hands down, bar none. So it just seems that, there's this weight that everybody wants to get basically attacked. It seems like there's a 1-loss or 2-loss tax that the Browns have to take because basically that's their name. And, look, you get guys like Ryan Clark, who it probably kills him to tell you how good he thinks the Cleveland Browns are. And then you get others that just automatically assume they're a cellar dweller. And if they were able to win 10 games, they were able to win 10 games and come 4th in the division. A little crazy.
Yeah, again, no division has ever had every team over 500. So, again, and I'm not saying the AFC North might not do that. It's just not likely. This is
well. Remember, we went through this last year. What did we all think the AFC West was going to do last year? And it went crashing down. So you never know. That's why the old we're on is that's why they play the games, right?
This is really interesting. This is from the 33rd team, and those are former personnel and NFL executive types. Average age for every team's quarterback 1, wide receiver 1, running back 1. Browns are 28.2 years old. Only the Titans, Rams, Raiders, and Jets, and remember the Jets have Aaron Rodgers, so that skews that number quite a bit, are older. But the point of that exercise is when your skill position players are that age, it is win now mode, without question.
No, there is no question. And the other thing is they're all basically the same age, obviously. They're all within basically a year and a half of each other. But, yeah, I mean, the point is the time is now, obviously. And I don't think anybody's foolish to that. And everybody knows that if this season goes 7-10, it's going to be a serious issue within that building. Nobody's foolish enough to not believe that. But like we said, though, 27 as a quarterback means nothing. Obviously, many years ahead of him. And it seems like they've got their bases covered. If there's any Amari Cooper fall off, the key one is obviously going to be running back, of course. But, the way we all know Nick and the amount of work that Nick puts in, and, Nick's not out doing anything else but getting himself ready, for his NFL season. Yeah, I mean, a little bit older than maybe you'd like, but, this is, where you want to be. It's prime winning time. And, obviously we'll find out in about 6.5 weeks.
The other thing is those 2-3 years where Kareem Hunt shared the carries, in theory, the thought is that kind of extends the shelf life where he's elite. And I certainly buy into that.
Oh, yeah, no question, in my opinion. You truly think that, there was some effort there to hopefully, give Nick a little bit more shelf life. And, we'll see the way it works out this year, because that's going to be a tough spot for them. Is, ideally, if you want to have this long run, you've got 17 games. Then you're going to get to playoff games. So ideally, you want to make sure if you get to January and you have games to play, Nick's still got something in the tank. And, we'll see. I mean, Jerome Ford has his fans. But for me, it's just difficult. Carries last year is not going to make your case. It's certainly not going to break your case.
Jeff Lloyd, Locked On Browns podcast, as always. Great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Jeff.
All the best, Dave. We'll talk soon, buddy.
All right, sounds good. Jeff Lloyd, make sure you check him out. Locked On Browns podcast, always really good stuff. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason and some bold predictions for the Browns. Sports for CLE, I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams, I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns here on Sports4CLE. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Just by watching the clips from training camp, it seems the offense is adapting the philosophy from the Rams, Ravens, and the Chiefs by using motion as the ball is being snapped to create confusion among the defense, which is going to benefit the run and the pass heavily. So I'm excited because this is going to cause more explosive plays to happen more often, and a lot more points are going to be scored. Go Browns.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Let's welcome in Eddie McDonald from Dog Pound Daily. Eddie, I would say they're probably using the motion because they have the speed guys now, like the teams that the caller mentioned. When you have them, you try to isolate them and find out who's covering them, so you exploit it. They just didn't have the pieces to necessarily try to do that before.
No, they did try before a little bit, but it didn't really work out because they didn't have that speed. And Elijah Moore is a perfect fit for that, what they want to do, because we've seen a few times, he's gotten the handoffs a few times. So they can run somewhat of a pistol formation that we thought we'd see last year with Chubb and Hunt, with him and Chubb, or they can flank Chubb out and have him in the back. There's a plethora of options to deal with, but the speed is amazing, and so far so good. I know it's helmets and shorts, but for right now it's what we have, and it's is exciting actually, because we actually have that speed that we can do these pre-snap motions and get the defenses guessing.
And you also have a quarterback with the arm talent to really take advantage of it as well. This from Dog Pound Daily. 3 bold predictions for the Browns at the start of camp. Number 3, top 5 special teams unit. Number 2, JOK returns to his rookie season form. And number 1, Jedrick Wills turns the corner, the former 10th overall pick left tackle. If those things happen, those are really good things, especially the special teams. I think that was maybe an underlooked deficiency of this team the last couple of years, was how much the special teams struggled.
Yeah, they've struggled tremendously. Mike Priefer was there for too long. I think Kevin Stefanski was loyal to him by fault, because that's who he came in. That's who he brought in with him when he came to Cleveland. This year it should be better. Bubba Ventrone has been there. He had the Colts special teams ranked, very high, top 5 or top 10. So I think coaching will matter, and I think Jimmy Haslam touched on that yesterday when him and his wife Dee spoke to the media. But the special teams should be a lot improved. And I'm excited to see what Cade York does this year. How he fixes the struggles he went through last year as a rookie. But I'm very excited to see what this new coach can do for us, because he has experience, and it's just it's like a dawning of a new day in Cleveland, if you will.
I'm with you. I'm with the thought that JOK has a big year, and he is one of the guys, quite frankly, I'm anxious to see in Jim Schwartz's defense, because Jim Schwartz will use him a little. It will be nuanced. He'll be used a little differently.
Yeah, I'm excited for that as well. And of these 3 bold predictions, I think it was Greg who wrote this. I think this is the one I'm most confident in, that he gets back to rookie form. Last year he had some injuries, and Stefanski even just talked about that yesterday, the day before, that he dealt with injuries. They're excited to see him back, and I'm really excited to see what he does in Jim Schwartz's defense. I think he can play all over the field and do whatever is asked of him. I think that's like a perfect fit for him. And then when you have the improved pass rush up front, I think that's going to help him tremendously. And he's good at getting to the ball, whether in coverage or making tackles. So I'm very excited to see what this. I'm with you 100% on that. Yeah, and I'm anxious to see if the defensive tackles can keep him clean, so he can utilize that speed and athleticism. You know what? I am not as down on Jedrick Wills as a lot of people are. I hope he turns the corner. I'm not confident, but if you told me he was going to, you could get me to believe that. I think there is an above average to almost elite left tackle in there, and we just haven't seen it yet. It's been too inconsistent, I guess, is what I would feel. That's exactly what it is. And him and JOK both, for example, are inconsistent. JOK more so with injuries. But Jedrick Wills, I'm the exact same mindset with you. I think he's good enough, and he's an NFL starting left tackle. Is he great? Not yet. Can he be? Absolutely, he can be. But this year will be a big year for him. He's here this year and next year, and then we'll see. But I think that he has the tools. I don't know what his work ethic is like. I'm not there, so I'm not going to speculate on what he does or doesn't do on and off the field. But I think if he has a big year, it'll be obviously huge for the Browns. But you don't need necessarily a great left tackle, just someone that could help keep your quarterback upright. And especially in this case with Deshaun Watson here for the next 4 years, making all the money he is, Jedrick Wills, I think, will have to step up, or he'll have to find a new job or a new place to call home.
All right, this from CBS Sports, ranking the NFL divisions by quarterback. And they rank the AFC North 1, so Burrow, Jackson, Watson, Kenny Pickett. They rank the AFC West number 2. Relative to the North, they say Watson struggled mightily after returning in 2022. If he rebounds even close to peak Texans form, we're talking about an above-average pocket operator. Not only is he above average in the pocket, he is elite at extending and making the plays outside of the pocket, which that's one of the things that made him so unique. That's, you think Patrick Mahomes, I wouldn't necessarily say even Lamar Jackson plays as well in the pocket. His skills outside of the pocket make him elite. But Watson has the ability to do both, which is really special.
That's something we haven't had in Cleveland, and I don't know if they've had it since they've come back in '99. And last year was Jacoby Brissett. He can move a little bit, but not even close to what Deshaun Watson can. Baker Mayfield tried to move a little bit out of the pocket. Got flustered when he was moved out of the pocket, and oftentimes moved himself out of the pocket. Watson excels in that, though. That is where his bread and butter. I think that's where we're going to see a lot of the the pre-snap motion and stuff excel in the play actions. Because he's going to be able to either hand it off to someone, dump it off to someone, or launch it deep, or just take off himself. And I don't think we've had a threat at a quarterback like that since 1999. There is someone, there's guys that were supposed to be that, just never panned out. But the rankings for this, I'm surprised that they went with that, because a lot of people are very negative on Deshaun Watson. But if this says if he gets back to close to peak form of the Texans, then this team is not just a playoff team, but it's a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah.
But obviously we have a long way to go for that. But everything right now, as of right now on paper, looks great for him. And so yeah, I would probably rank them number 1. That's tough after, but yeah, number 1 seems accurate, especially if Watson gets back to Pro Bowl level play, because we know what Lamar and Burrow are going to do.
Yeah, and the West is the one, it's got Mahomes, it's got Garoppolo, it's got Herbert, and it's got Russell Wilson. The question being, Wilson's a little bit older, so did he slide, or can Sean Payton bring him back? So I get it. Eddie McDonald from Dog Pound Daily and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, we'll hear from Andrew Berry, Sports for CLE. He'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Eddie McDonald from Dog Pound Daily. Kevin Stefanski met with media today, talked about Myles Garrett and what he could be like in Jim Schwartz's defense.
I think all changes, scheme to scheme, there are obviously changes. But I'd say they're more nuanced than major. And Myles has had a lot of success for us in a 4-down front. He's one on the right, on the left, inside. He's really, as we talked about Nick the other day, Myles is very similar in that he can fit in any scheme, but we've seen him in these 4-down fronts to be very disruptive. So I think for us, it's unlocking the next step for Myles, like it is every player. I think any one of our players would tell you there's more than they can give. I don't care where they are in their career, what they've accomplished. I always think there's more that they can give.
When you say unlock the next step for him, what does that mean?
I don't know what exactly numbers or that type of thing, but I would just tell you that there's no player on the field today that can't get better. And for Myles, I think that's the truth. It's also a mentality. That's why we're out here working.
And Eddie, it's interesting because Myles Garrett always kind of gives you that same type of energy and vibe that I'm just trying to get better.
Yeah, and that should be the goal of every athlete ever. If you're not trying to get better, or not even just athlete, any person in general, if you are working at this, like we are content creators, for example, if we're not getting better, then what are we doing? We're really holding ourselves back. And I think that with Myles Garrett, he is one of those unique players that you can put him in almost any environment on defense, and he will excel. I am excited to see him with a better defensive line cast beside him. Hopefully it pans out. Obviously, it has to work out on paper. It looks fantastic. Very excited for Dalvin Tomlinson to be there, Za'Darius Smith to be here, Okonkwo to be here. There's a couple other guys, Hurst and the other defensive tackle, who are injured but could, step in and help. Isaiah McGuire is going to be a huge part of this defense, I think. So just having Myles have more support on that defensive line, I think, is going to help him tremendously. And I don't know if he breaks the NFL record. I think he breaks his own franchise record, though, this year of sacks.
Yeah, he is set up to have a really big year. So Garrett also met with the media today, and he was asked about former teammate Malik Jackson's comments about him not being a really good leader off the field.
He has a right to his opinion, and we're all learning as we go. And leadership is a fluid thing. It takes different shapes and forms depending on the room and depending on the person. And I can lead in the only way that I know how, and I only can continue to grow as a leader. And we'll continue to lead together. It's not just one person. We have a lot of experience in the room, and we have to be together. We have to do this together. And one voice shouldn't speak louder than any other. We have to all be pushing at the same rate in the same direction, and that's how winning teams, winning groups are made.
And Eddie, I would say he's really kind of taken a couple of steps forward the last couple of years in those areas, being kind of the voice of the defense, and we've seen that. The other thing we saw today, there's video of him kind of working with some of the younger guys. So he is taking that very seriously. He wants to step into that leadership role.
Yeah, and we don't see it every day of what type of leadership he does or doesn't do. We don't see, these conversations. Like we saw it, a little bit today in some videos, but we don't know what they're doing off the field or in the locker room or what they're talking about or how he leads. I also don't need my defensive end, even if he's the star defensive end, to be the leader of my team. I have other guys for that. But I think what he said hits home a lot. They all have to be together. I don't think the defensive line has played together for almost the entirety of his time in Cleveland. We thought Jadeveon Clowney would help fix that. It did not. But how he leads is really, it's subjective, sort of like he said. It's subjective because he excels. He's better as I'm going to do this. Hopefully you guys follow my lead on the field because, he's been one of the elite pass rushers in the game since he's come in the league. But I don't need my defensive end to be the leader of the team. So how he leads, and as long as it's not, butting heads with his teammates or his coach, then I'm all for whatever he does. But like he said, all of the defensive line has to be together, and no one voice should be higher than the others. And I think that's true, especially with Jim Schwartz as the defensive coordinator, because he's going to hold these players accountable. So hopefully that gets them in the right direction to succeed.
Yeah, the other thing, if your personality is not that to be outspoken and the leader, and you can't be somebody that you're not, because in a group setting, in a locker room, people will sniff that out, and that is not a good thing in a locker room.
No, not a locker room or any place of work. Some people don't like to be motivated like that. They have their own motivation. And some people just want to be motivated. Hey, give me all the encouragement you can. Hey, if I'm doing wrong, yell at me. I don't know if Myles Garrett is necessarily yelling at guys, but he doesn't need to be the one that's doing that. He has coaches for that. Now, if he can pull a guy aside and say, hey, I saw you do this, try this, or look at it this way, I'm good with that. But again, we don't see that every day. So I have no idea how many conversations he's had with any of these guys. So I think the leadership of Myles gets blown out of proportion at times. Like I said, I don't need him to be the absolute leader of this team. Just lead on the field and be productive.
Eddie McDonald, Dog Pound Daily, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Eddie.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, Eddie McDonald, make sure you check him out. Good stuff from Dog Pound Daily. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.